3, 2, 1, action. Hey YouTube, Turtleaxe here, bringing you another AFK Journey video. We are live on Twitch chat. You can say hi to YouTube, your mom, your future self, whoever you'd like. And the reason I'm filming this is because I've noticed that within the past 2 weeks we've been having new players join the Twitch stream, and they would ask me for advice, and I figured that it has been probably at least half a year since I filmed an updated wishlist guide. So the structure of this video will be as follows. First, I'm going to explain why wishlists are important. Second, we'll actually go through the wishlist. We'll kind of go through the thought process between what I think is the true value of each hero in this game for your account, and then we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts. So the wish list is a feature in this game that is very important, because in this game, when you go to your resonating hall and you look at the heroes available to you, you'll notice that the frame of the heroes will be different depending on how ascended you are. And the ascension of your heroes is very important, because the way this game works is that one copy of a hero is not enough. You actually want to get as many copies of a hero as possible, because if you click on this icon here, typically when you get one copy of a hero, you get access to only the first 3 skills, which consists of the ultimate as well as 2 basic skills. But as you acquire more duplicates of the heroes, we call them dupes, as you get more dupes of the same hero, you unlock additional abilities, such as additional stats when they are in battle. Or, with more copies, you get access to your EX weapon, which is this right here. If you click here, the EX weapon does not unlock until you have gotten a hero to Mythic Plus, which is the minimum rarity, or the Mythic minimum number of ascensions you need in order to unlock the weapon, which provides additional abilities as well as additional basic stats. And to level up your EX weapon, you're going to need to use something called temporal essences, which are these yellow shards here, which are very important. And actually, it is because of these yellow shards and their rarity that kind of shapes the hero priority. Because in this game, AFK Journey, if you go to battle modes, there are I would argue 3 or 4 important modes that you need to pay attention to and try to build the best teams for, in order to maximize the progression of your account. I think most people in chat would agree that the most important game mode by far, by a long shot, would be Dream Realm. Dream Realm is a game mode in which every day you face a different boss. Like today, for instance, we are fighting Thalassa, and if you go to rankings, the rankings are important. You compete against your server, and you also compete against your district. Server is basically people that you share the same world with. Districts consist of different servers that, even though they might not be in the same world, sharing the same world, but you compete against each other for rewards. And if you click the treasure chest here, it shows you the kinds of rewards you can get, such as the very valuable temporal essence, which is required to bring a hero's EX weapon from 5 to 15, as well as Twilight Essence, which brings the EX weapon from level 15 to 25. So these are, especially the yellow ones, the golden ones, are extremely valuable. As you can see, by getting top 20, you only get 2 of these. if you're top 20 in your district, and if you're top 10 in your server, you get 4 of these temporal essences. So on a good day you can get 6 temporal essences per day, but keep in mind that one server could have hundreds of players, and usually the whales who spend money on this game will have an edge over you. So realistically, as a free-to-play player, you probably would be getting more like 2 temporal essences per day, which is not a whole lot, because to bring an EX weapon from EX5 to EX10, so basically level 5 to level 10, requires 75 temporal essences, which for a free-to-play player who is making top 50 in the server and say like top 100 or top 200 in your district, you're probably getting only 4 temporal essences a day, which translates to you needing about 1.5 months just to bring one hero's EX weapon from 5 to 10. So I just want to emphasize that, the importance of temporal essences, which is why Dream Realm, when we curate your wish list, Dream Realm will be top of mind. But we cannot neglect the other modes, such as Arena, which is player versus player. This is what we call PvP, player versus player. You do get important ranking rewards, which consist of arena coins, which you can exchange in the arena store for valuable rewards, such as stellar crystals, which are required to get celestial hypogenes, as well as S-rank heroes, which is the highest rarity that you can get. You can't purchase all of them, but like I mentioned before, you do need to purchase duplicates of certain basically any heroes you plan on building in order for them to perform at their max potential, if you will. And then additionally, so that's one kind of PvP arena, and then there's also Supreme Arena, where you compete against your district. And if we go here, every day you do get rewards as well, which consist of Twilight Essences, which are necessary for leveling up your EX weapon, but also these valuable season experience hourglasses, which are more important during the first half of each season, because your resonance level is what allows your heroes to be stronger in general. Like you'll do more damage and you'll take less damage. All right, and then there's also AFK stages. AFK stage pushing is very important, because even though this season they put a cap to the amount of rewards that you can passively accumulate, but the rewards are still very important to accumulate, and you do want to keep pace. So this is called AFK journey, because just by the game running in the background, you do passively get gold, which is required for purchasing a lot of different things like equipment, etc., etc. Season essences, which is required to raise your resonance level, which I mentioned before is for your stats, and then season EXP books also for resonance level. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the importance of different game modes, so now we can go ahead and start talking about the wish list itself. Now, to get to the wish list, because I have a new player who asked about this, from the world map, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the mystical house down here, and then you're going to go to the noble tavern. So the tavern is where you recruit heroes. Now I'll briefly explain what each of these means. So there's basically 4 different ways to recruit. When you first start the game, you'll only have access to the left 3, rate up recruitment, all hero recruitment, and epic recruitment. And then once you have recruited 300 times, recruiting meaning like you summon for heroes, the Stargaze station will unlock. I want to emphasize the Stargaze station briefly, because these stellar crystals are probably the most premium currency you will accumulate in the game. This is probably the #1 most coveted resource you don't just spend it willy-nilly on whatever you want. You actually need to make each stellar crystal summon count, because stellar crystals is the way that you summon for one of these celestial hypogean heroes, which are the strongest in the game. Just to put it in perspective, in the Dream Realm game mode, which I told you before is the most important game mode in this game from a resource accumulation standpoint, for endgame teams, 4 of the heroes here are meta defining, meaning you need to have, well, you don't need to, but you very likely will need to have the heroes maxed out, like max ascensions, which is Supreme Plus in this game, in order to secure the highest rankings in Dream Realm. The heroes being the Twins, which is a new hero this season, Chains of Eternity, which is probably the most important, arguably the most important Dream Realm hero. Very powerful support, as well as Frusto, Rainier, Harak, and to a lesser extent Tulin. Now, in terms of priority, you're going to choose the Twins first, unless you don't care about meta. So Twins would be the highest priority, followed by Frusto. And actually, the reason why is because the Twins are a support unit, which is basically a healer / buffer, that is capable of providing very valuable buffs to improve the overall damage output of your damage dealers, your DPS, damage per second. And then Frusto, he is a tank even though he's a tank, he's actually a damage dealer, one of the best damage dealers in Dream Realm, because in Dream Realm, as you progress through the ranks of Dream Realm, from the lowest ranks, which would be like Epic, Common 1, Common 2, all the way to, Epic, then Hell Mode, and then Endless Mode, where the boss has unlimited HP, and you're trying to do as much damage within 90 seconds as possible. Frusto, it becomes king in Endless Mode, which is the highest game mode, because Frusto's damage scales off of the boss's max HP. So obviously, the chonkier the boss, the more damage Frusto will deal, whereas vanilla DPSs will get outshined by HP scaling, damage dealers like Frusto and some other heroes we'll talk about later. Now, Harak is a special case. Harak is a damage dealer who basically boosts his stats significantly by eating your allies. Basically, every time you deploy for battle, you can summon up to 5 heroes at a time, and Harak will eat your other heroes in order to boost his own stats. He's a very selfish DPS. Normally, he would not be like super meta defining from his base kit. However, because of something called Magic Charms, which is basically the developer's way of buffing certain heroes for a particular season, Harak has a special Magic Charm set, which is not showing up here, that allows him to gain more attack and more physical and magic defense every 10 seconds that continue to accumulate until the battle is over. So for this reason, because of the season Magic Charms, Harak is artificially buffed for this season, Chains of Eternity, which lasts from January 17th, 2025 to May 2025. So if you are a new player who's free to play, chances are you will only have enough stellar crystals to build 1 or maximum 2 celestial hypogean heroes from 0 copies to Supreme Plus. And some people may ask, well, can't I just summon 1 copy of the Twins, 1 copy of Harak, 1 copy of Frusto, 1 copy of Tulin, but the thing is, like I mentioned at the start of this video, if you only summon 1 copy of a hero, you're missing out on a ton of stats, you're missing out on more than half of their kit. Yeah, and your scores just won't be that great. You have to hyper invest on a hero, get them as high of ascension as physically possible. And whatever RNG provides you. So in terms of summoning priority, you're going to prioritize the twins first, followed by Fresto, followed by Rainier, who is another support. One of the OGs in this game, came out with the game's release. He is a support that has a very unique part of his kit where he's able to increase the damage taken by the targeted opponent by 25%, and then reducing a selected hero of yours, basically mitigating their damage taken by 25%. So it's a great way to increase your damage output while providing damage mitigation for your glass cannon DPS. Glass cannon meaning you have a hero who deals a ton of damage, but they're very easily knocked out. So Rainier solves those two issues. And also, he is the hero who you can actually bring to Mythic Plus, which is a lower ascension than Supreme Plus, and still get the maximum value. So Rainier is a budget hero in that regard. For a free-to-play player, you can pretty much worry about just those three, because to get the Twin Supreme Plus, Fresto Supreme Plus, and Rainier Mythic Plus, it'll probably take you at least a season and a half, which is basically half a year, if you have better than average RNG. If you're hitting hard pity every single time, meaning like you have the worst possible luck in the universe, then chances are it'll take you 4 to 5 months just to get one hero fully built. That's why I'm emphasizing this first. And then if you are a low spender or a whale, then the next in priority would probably be Harok, although that is with a huge asterisk, because like I mentioned before, the devs, they do introduce a feature called Magic Charms, which artificially inflates the power of certain heroes for a particular season. So you could either go Harok as the 4th hero, or in my opinion, I would actually go with Tulin, just because Tulin, she is basically an area of effect mage that revives, deals a ton of burst damage, but even though she has an area of effect damage output, but her single target damage output is actually also very good. And her Pyre of Renewal ability, which is granted, I think, either from her Supreme Plus ability or from her EX weapon, allows her to grant the frontmost ally the ability to revive once. So Tulin, very powerful. And then you can pretty much ignore everyone else. Burial has dropped off. Dianel, he's a DPS who has never really been relevant outside of PvP. Dunleer, he is a utility tank who shuts down certain mechanics like ultimates or the ability to heal, but this applies both ways, to your opponents and yourself. Not really a Dream Realm worthy hero. I forgot to mention Burial. He is basically a niche hero who steals energy from the opponents, which is required to cast their ultimates, which is a very strong ability. But yeah, he doesn't really see much play. And then Scarlita, who used to be meta but is kind of falling off a little bit. Scarlita, she basically shields your allies in the beginning, then she'll come down and start eating enemies off the map if their HP is low enough. But Scarlita, she does kind of fall off. She has fallen off a bit across all game modes, so unfortunately she's not really viable anymore. Hey, don't be dissing my boy Dianel. He may be a whale bait, but he's still good. Yes. Now, one note about Dianel. So what makes him one of the best PvP heroes in the game is that when you apply 3 temporary buffs to him, all his damage output comes in the form of true damage, which means he 100% bypasses the enemy defenses and his damage output gets absolutely insane. Plus he can go up into the air and start destroying enemies and the enemies can't hit him. He goes very well with Dunleer because Dunleer with his Supreme Plus ability applies temporary buffs that are quite useful. Dionnel is a hero who benefits greatly from attack speed because Dionnel already attacks like a truck with enough investments. So, you know, with Dunleer applying attack speed, temporary buff to Dionnel, it fulfills Dionnel's 3 intoxication stack requirement to enter true damage mode, and also makes Dionnel hit much more frequently within a certain period of time. Yeah, so anyways, I think we pretty much talked about all these heroes. So now we can move on to let's move on to this real quick. So rate up recruitment, the way this works is that for the cost of 1 rate up invite letter or the cost of 300 diamonds, you have a chance to pull a new featured hero, let's put it that way. Because unlike other gacha games where if you don't summon for a hero within a certain amount of time, you have to wait like another 6 months or 1 year in order to summon for them again in a future banner, in this game does it the best in my opinion, where heroes that used to be in the rate up banner will eventually be moved to the all hero recruitment, where you can curate your wish list so that if you hit, you know, if you get a hit, you are guaranteed one of these 8 S rank heroes. Yeah, so that's what I like about AFK Journey. You never truly have to have FOMO because even if they move off of the rate up banner, you will immediately get access to them in the wish list. And some people actually skip rate up recruitment altogether and wait until they enter the wish list and then start summoning for them. So I do really like that aspect of the game. Now, just in case you guys are curious, currently we have Colin, who is a Graveborn tank who applies beefy shields, protecting your allies, but he's not really good. And then Volka, he is an offensive buffer who has great DPS and survivability potential. He's like a frontline DPS, but she's not really, even though she does true damage under certain criteria that is met, she unfortunately is not a Dream Realm hero in like any significant sense. In PvP she's okay, but not necessary. So she's also skippable. So you can actually skip both of these and focus on all hero recruitment, which is actually the banner that I would recommend all new players start summoning from. I would not recommend you start summoning from a rate up hero banner until you have most of your roster built, or you are a low spender / whale. Okay, so now let's talk about all hero recruitment. Now one thing I do want to mention real quick is that along the same vein as rate up recruitment, you have 2 ways to summon on the all hero recruitment banner. You can either use an invite letter, which are the white tickets, or you can spend 300 diamonds. However, there's 2 ways to get a discount on your invite letters, and I think you know, this is important to emphasize. One is you can do a 10 pull. So if you recruit 10, the cost of each summon becomes 270 diamonds instead of 300. Yeah, so that's one thing to take into account. And as you saw just now, they will allow you to do a combination of invite letters plus diamonds in order to do a 10 pull. You don't have to accumulate 2,700 diamonds in order to do one 10 pull. Okay. The other way to get a discount for invite letters, all hero recruitment, if I was to backspace for a moment and go to the Emporium, which I'll talk about in a future, more in depth in a future video, if you go to the guild store every day you have a chance to buy one invite letter for 210 diamonds instead of the usual 270 if you do a 10 pull or 300 if you do a single pull. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go back to the Noble Tavern. Alright, now to the juicy part. I'm sorry it took this long to get to this wish list, but this is a beginner's guide, so I want to be thorough. So basically, this game, you know how there's like different types, right? Like there, you know, elements in different gacha games. Hey Puzzle, good to see you. You're on YouTube. This game has 6 different elements. There's Lightbearer, Mauler, Wilder, Graveborn, or if we were to back out to the Stargaze station, there are also Hypogenes and Celestials. So there's 6 different types in this game, and there's like an advantage and weakness tree, but it's not as impactful in this game as in other games, so I wouldn't worry too much about matchups. Yes, and Puzzle, by the way, is a content creator. If you're watching my video, you've probably stumbled upon his videos as well. So, yeah. Alright, so we're going to go line by line and talk about the priorities for different heroes. You'll notice that there's heroes with a golden background, heroes with a purple background. So whenever you see a gold crown on the top left, that means they are S level heroes. They are a higher rarity, quote unquote. And then the purple indicates that they're A levels, they're a lower rarity. And I put these apostrophes because unlike other gacha games, there are a lot of A level heroes that are better than S ranks, and there's a lot of S ranks that are absolutely terrible. So the rarity really just kind of indicates how many copies of them you need to ascend them, and there's different ways to acquire an S rank hero versus an A rank hero, so they're all very important. Alright, so with changing your wish list, what you do is you left click on the hero. It'll do a drop down menu for heroes within the same faction, so these are all light bearers, and also within the same rarity, so S levels. Basically, just to summarize real quick, there's 6 S level light bearers. I would say the top priority for a brand new player, the first one will be Sonya. So Sonya is one hero I'm recommending because she is a DPS that also provides really chunky offensive buffs to 2 allies of your choice based on positioning. She is a Dream Realm hero, and she's also very good in PvP, so she's just a very versatile hero who will benefit your account greatly. And then the second hero I would recommend would be Rowan, because Rowan, even though he's not used in Dream Realm, but he is a very important healer who provides bursts of energies to surrounding allies, which makes him unique compared to other healers, because other healers, they focus more on healing. Rowan is able to provide energy in addition to heals, which allows your allies to cast their ultimates faster. And then once you have these 2 heroes to at least Mythic Plus, having their EX weapon unlocked, which I would say any hero on this wish list that I'm recommending to you right now, it is implied that you want to get enough copies to get them to at least Mythic Plus in order to unlock their EX weapon. After Rowan, then you have a couple choices. I would say probably the third best option would be Vala, because from a PvP perspective, she's quite good. However, Cassidy is also in contention because in battle drills, which is a guild mode, Cassidy is quite powerful because she is basically a support mage who is able to bless allies with her blessing of tidal strength to not only crowd control by throwing enemies up into the air with her waterfalls, you can say. But also, whenever a blessed ally does damage, Cassidy's damage output increases. And then there's Temesia, who has unique synergy with other heroes, because Temesia, she is a tank that moves around across the map and knocks down enemies, which can trigger the passive of another hero who I'll mention later. So she has a niche role there. And then Atalanta you can skip, because she's like a marksman who does like different things like stuns and stuff, but she doesn't have high damage output. She doesn't really have an impact across any game mode. So in summary, for S-rank Lightbearers, it will be Sonya, Rowan first, followed by, if you care about PvP, you're going to go with Vala next, or if you care about guild battle drills, then Cassidy I would recommend. If you care about AFK stage pushing, Temesia used to be relevant, but she's not even used in AFK stages anymore. But Temesia could be a decent PvP hero, although not many people at higher ranks use her. So I would say Sonya 1, Rowan 2, Vala, Cassidy tied for 3, depending on your priorities. Now moving on to A rank heroes, I would say hands down, as of this season, the top 2 heroes will be Sinbad and Hugin. Sinbad was released in the previous season, Waves of Intrigue, as well as Hugin. So these are newer heroes. Now, the reason why these two are hands down the A rank Lightbearers that you want to build first is because Sinbad, he has the ability to significantly buff and significantly debuff, or significantly debuff an enemy and significantly buff your damage to that enemy, if that makes sense. And these buffs and debuffs can apply to 2 different enemies, or in the case of Dream Realm, the same enemy, because Dream Realm typically there's only one enemy that you're fighting and they can have both buffs. Sinbad does a ton of damage as well. It's very fast, so he is a very important Dream Realm hero, especially in the beginning of the season. And then Hugin, right now, he is very good because in addition to being a damage mitigating healer, like he can mitigate damage of your allies, provide shields for them, and also he has decent heals. His magic charm set for this season allows him to provide a very powerful buff to the ally position behind him, converting 30% of their damage to true damage. I mentioned before that true damage is important because you bypass 100% of the enemy's defenses. In Dream Realm, that is especially important because the higher difficulty you go up in Dream Realm, the more defenses the enemy, the boss has. So obviously bypassing greater defenses is valuable. So Hugin is very good, although if you are going from a future-proof perspective, Hugin might fall off next season because his magic charm set this season is what makes him good. If you are looking for more future-proof heroes, to be honest, the rest of these heroes are not like super great. Like Valen, you can skip 100%. Muriel, even though she got buffed this season, the only time you really run her as a DPS mage is in game modes where you are limited to the Lightbearer faction. And then Faye, she's a healer who's not great. Luca and Lucius are tanks in the Lightbearer faction that provide different roles. So Lucius, his ultimate, he provides shields for himself and his allies, whereas Luca is more, he is a really tanky tank that can provide control immunity to himself. So if you're fighting against enemies that put you to sleep or try to stun you, Luca's immune to that. And Luca can like windmill slam that enemy, making them unable to move. So Luca is kind of like a tech against that. Walker, he is an AoE crowd control hero who can stun multiple enemies at a time, which in a PvP setting or an AFK stage pushing setting can be useful. Merely, he is a DPS hero who has fallen off. Korn is a shielding DPS hero who has fallen off. The Lightbearer A ranks have fallen off hard this season. If you were to ask me last season, these two as well as Korn as well as Walker were good because the faction talents did buff Lightbearers in general, but unfortunately Lightbearers have fallen off quite a bit from the A rank side. So I think the safest option would be Sinbad, Hugin, first two picks, followed by a tank of your choice, either Lucius or Luca. And then probably, in my opinion, either Faye or Walker, because even though these both have fallen off, you will need these for the Lightbearer faction tower. Yeah, they will still be somewhat helpful. Okay, so now moving on to Mauler S ranks. So these two, without a shadow of a doubt, will be the top two picks. Mikola and Smokey are both healers that provide different utility. Mikola is the best non-celestial hypogene Dream Realm hero in the game because in addition to being a really hot waifu, she also provides some of the best offensive buffs in the game, and she's really hot, so you really should summon her. That's like non-negotiable. And then Smokey, he's the best, probably the highest DPS healer in the game because when you get him high enough ascension, he does basically release this blue fog that does high amounts of damage that scales off of the enemy's max HP, and this can affect multiple enemies, basically any enemy within the blue fog map. And Smokey is very future-proof. There's no other ally that has been released for the past 11 months that come close to what Smokey does. After that, the S rank Maulers are quite loaded. I would say in terms of skippability, you can skip Reese, no problem. But the other four are quite useful in various ways. From a Dream Realm perspective, Shakir is probably the next best hero to build. So he would be number 3 in my book because Shakir, he is a DPS that also with high enough ascension has a lupine aura field of effect where allies nearby benefit from an additional, I think, like attack speed or haste, as well as life drain, if memory serves me right. So he is basically a DPS that provides offensive buffs, kind of like Sonya, but not as good as Sonya. And then after Shakir, you have different options. If you care about PvP as well as battle drills, which is a guild mode, then Ulsa is going to be very good because she is a crowd control, very fast hitting mage with I think the second longest range in the game, the first being Bonnie, who we'll talk about later. Most mages and ranged units in this game, by the way, have a range of 5, so 5 is kind of like the standard. If you have higher than 5, that's great because you hit from further away than normal. So also has, I think she's the only ranged DPS that has a range of 6 to my knowledge. So that is unique for her. So she's a mage as well, which allows her to synergize very well with certain heroes like Aaron, who we'll talk about later. Brutus is one of the best tanks in the game because he is able to cheat death, meaning like if he gets KO'd, he doesn't die right away. A shield, like a gold bubble, forms around him and he cheats death for 5 seconds or more and heals in the meantime, which is very good if you're trying to deficit push. Like let's say you're a sweaty gamer, like a sweaty free-to-play who tries to beat whales by just putting in more work. Brutus will allow you to do that because, you know, sometimes you'll face against enemies who one-shot you if you progress high enough, and sometimes you just need a tank who can cheat death long enough for the rest of your 4 heroes to monk ass, like get in position to help you survive the remaining 85 seconds of the match. So Brutus is very good for that. Lumont is also very good from an AFK stage pushing perspective, and in some ways in PvP along the same vein as Brutus, because Lumont, he is kind of like a bulldozer that like souffles enemies into the air, so very disruptive, and he's pretty fun to watch, and he's a hilarious tank. So yeah, he's pretty good too. Has niche roles in AFK stage pushing, a good unit. So in summary, for S rank Maulers, I would go Mikola Smokey first, followed by Shakir from a Dream Realm perspective, then moving on to other content like PvP, guild, you know, stuff. So it would be like Ulsa, Brutus, Lumond. I would say the priority for number 4 would be tied between Ulsa and Brutus. Probably Ulsa edging Brutus slightly, followed by Lumont. Alright, so moving on to A rank Maulers. Top priority would probably be Odie and Coco. As you can see, I have them maxed out. Brutus is good to get at 1 copy early on. True, thank you, Jeff. That is true. There are a few select heroes like Brutus, who I mentioned earlier, as well as Coco, who I'm mentioning now, who provide their best value at 1 copy. Doesn't mean you should only summon 1 copy, but I'm just saying, like, at 1 copy they are already provided a lot of front-loaded value. Coco is one of the best healers in the game, not because she heals, because she doesn't heal very much, but because she provides really chonky shields with her ultimate, which provide a damage mitigation of 45%, which is by far the chonkiest of damage mitigations in the game, even greater than Hugin, who also provides a lot of chonkiness to your allies. This is great because some enemies will do more damage than the HP of your heroes, so being able to effectively increase the survivability of your heroes by at least 45%, I mean, that's incredible, and Coco does this for your entire team. And Coco actually is very important from a Dream Realm perspective during the first month of the season, because sometimes in order to score very high in Dream Realm, you need to survive, because the way Dream Realm works is that the more damage you do to the Dream Realm boss, the greater their defenses, the greater their offenses. So as you get a higher score, sometimes your run ends prematurely because you just get one-shotted. And Coco allows you to not be one-shotted because he has to get through your shields before he depletes your HP. And then Odie is the most unique and one of the most powerful damage dealers in the game, and he's also ranged, and he's a magic damage dealer. And I emphasize magic because in this game, magic damage dealers have the advantage, unfortunately. Maybe in the future they'll give some more love to physical, but for now, there's some heroes that are meta partly because they're magic. And Odie, what makes him unique is that he has the ability to apply poison darts. I think with his ultimate, dart poison. Basically what will happen is he can apply a stack of poison that once the enemy's HP goes to a certain amount, then they'll get outright deleted from the battlefield. So, and that's a really unique ability that no other ally can do. So very important. All right, so after you go for those two, then you can probably go I would say probably Kruger next, because Kruger is also one of those one copy value heroes that with his ultimate he can apply up to 4 stacks of physical defense debuffs, which is very important because this allows you to bypass the enemy defenses to do more damage to the enemies, and this has relevance in not just Dream Realm but also other game modes. So that would be Kruger would be the third best, and then afterwards okay, sorry, I got a text from my mom. Okay, so after Kruger, then I would say the rest aren't that important. Like Seth isn't relevant in any important game mode. Entendre is a tank who gets outshined by other tanks. And then Soren, he requires specific terrain, which is not something you can really control unless you're running Ulsa. And then Satrana probably would be the next one, number 4, because she is the only support mage who is able to decrease the amount of healing that your opponent can do. And this is actually becoming more important now that certain heroes like Bonnie have been released, because we are entering a period of time where you have really powerful tanks like Fresto, really powerful healers like Damien, really powerful crowd control mages like Tassie, who we'll talk about later, and marksmen like Bonnie, who we'll talk about later, that basically holds down the fort until you do like one combo that like obliterates the opponent. And Satrana is very useful in an attrition match in PvP, because the less your opponent can heal, the easier it is to defeat them. And so Satrana is kind of like the stalemate breaker. Plus she also shreds magic defense. That's something not as many people talk about. So yeah, very useful. Alright, so moving on to S rank Wilders. So I would say this is very tough. This is very, very tough. I would say it would be a 3-way tie between Aaron, who is a crowd control mage who can, at the start of battle, vortex enemies in a group and also shred their magic defense by a significant amount. He also tanks very well at high investment. You have Lily May, who is one of the very great damage dealers in the game, who is able to hit very hard, has periods of invincibility, and probably the most unique part of her kit, be able to cancel the first ultimate that the opponent casts, and this is her passive ability. So it's very powerful in countering certain heroes like opposing Aarons, where you don't want the enemy to crowd control you at the very start. You also have Tassie, who is a very powerful mage. Takes a long time to get enough energy for her ultimate, but when she ultimates, she puts all enemies to sleep for 4 seconds, which is a long time in PvP. So usually if the opponent puts you to sleep, they're preparing to like kill your entire team. So very powerful. As you can see by my frames, even though I haven't explained what Paragon is, you can probably tell that I valued Lily May and Tassie very much, and I'm working on getting Aaron to his maximum possible potential. So it's a 3-way tie between these 3. I would say from a progression perspective, probably these two, Aaron and Tassie, because they both are used in PvP and they both are used in AFK stages, whereas Lily May is more just PvP. And then the 4th most important hero would be Haywin. Even though she's the 4th most important, but she's probably someone you want to start building ASAP as well. It's really rough on the S rank Wilder side because there's so many good ones. Haywin is a unique healer because she's the only healer to my knowledge who can heal every tile of the map, whereas most other healers, the allies have to be within a certain range for them to heal. Haywin with her prayer rain blankets the entire map with healing, so that's kind of nice. If you're running a tank like Temesia, for instance, who likes to run to the enemy, deep into enemy territory, there's some heroes who do that. So Haywin's very nice to make sure everyone's alive. So I like Haywin a lot, and she provides the second chunkiest damage mitigation in the game, besides Hugin and Coco. And she can provide crowd control immunity to herself. So that's very useful if you don't want the enemy to stop your healing. Haywin's also free with arena coins. True, Legacy, that is true. And then Granny you can skip. She's a tank who is only good when she ults, but that can take forever. Brian is a good niche hero because he is a ranged marksman who can summon an eagle. I forgot what his name is, but the eagle is good because he or she provides a ton of damage, and also is considered a summon, which has certain synergies, and then is an ultimate passive, quote unquote, which can be used to bait Lily May's passive, which counters the ultimate. It's a good way to protect your other valuable ultimates. Florbell is very good because Florbell, she's one of the few one of the few summoners in this game. She summons 3 different summons, these bulb sprites that all have different abilities. One is ranged, one is melee, another stuns with and does stuff. So Florbell is like 4 heroes in one. And Florbell has a niche role in AFK stage pushing against opposing Damians, who we'll talk about later. When it comes to AFK stage deficit pushing where the enemy's one-shotting, usually you're trying to hide your DPS in the back, but there's certain enemies that can snipe your backline. Florbell has one summon that goes further than the most backline of your backline, so that summon can bait those attacks, and Florbell can resummon those summons. So anyways, that's like super niche. And you never know, maybe down the road. Oh, Florbell also has an ability where she applies shields to not only her summons, but also your other ally summons. So you can have like a summon team, quote unquote, with Florbell, because she does apply, additional benefits to your other summons. And then Lorson is a fairly new hero who is like a DPS healer who doesn't have much of a role currently in Dream Realm or AFK stage pushing, but he does have a little bit of niche role in PvP. He does apply offensive buffs, an offensive buff, although it is pretty situational. It's basically a special buff to the ally who has taken the most damage, which is very difficult to control. So that's probably the second to last priority. So in summary, for S rank Wilders, I would say Aaron Tassi first, followed very, very closely by Lily May, followed very, very, very closely by Haywin, followed by Brian for his niche role, followed by Florbell / Lorson's. Yeah, that's debatable. And then Granny skippable. Alright, we're kinda almost done. Alright, so next for A rank Wilders, it's also a 3-way tie between Olmus, Arden, and Damien. Olmus is a crowd controlled tank who can cheat death once, and he also so basically, like, he's on the battlefield, and he has a passive, regardless of his form, that whenever the opponent gets displaced, they get crowd controlled. They're unable to act for an additional 2 seconds. And this can apply like it has a very short cooldown, so this can trigger quite a bit over the course of the fight. And this has very good synergy with certain heroes like Aaron, who crowd controls, right? Or Tamesia, who we mentioned earlier, who knocks down enemies. That's considered displacement as well. Lumont, who bulldozes enemies, who I mentioned earlier, the Mauler tank, also triggers Olmus's passive. Yeah, so for this reason, Olmus is very good. And when he gets KO'd and hides in the back line, he also does crowd control by tossing enemies up into the air when he throws rocks at them, and also can apply some shielding, I think, for your allies. It was either shielding or damage mitigation, so very good. Arden is a very powerful crowd control mage, because once you get him to Mythic Plus, he is able to entangle vine the enemies for 2 seconds, I think, maybe more than that. They're unable to act, and he hits very hard. So one of the best area of effect mages in the game. And then you have Damien, who is probably one of the best healers in the game, who unfortunately is not used in Dream Realm, the best teams, but he's very, very good in PvP, because he is a healer who can cheat death endlessly. It's actually not Damien who's on the battlefield, he's in the background, and he summons a chariot, remote controls a chariot, who applies offensive buffs like haste and attack, and then also stuns the backmost enemy, and with a paper airplane that hits insanely hard for some reason. And then on top of that, when the chariot dies, after like a couple seconds, Damien resummons the chariot. So this is very good for the long game as well. Okay, so 3-way tie, right? So those are the top priorities for Wishlist, and then once you get them to at least Mythic Plus, you can consider some of the others. The green chicken you can skip. Lenya has a niche role in PvP because she hits very hard. And she can also basically isolate an enemy and make the enemy... She basically aggroes an enemy, isolating them and aggroing them, which can actually be very helpful in certain situations. And yeah, that's about it for her. Parisa, she is somewhat useful in PvP as well, because she is a very hard-hitting mage who also applies attack speed to herself and certain allies. Lenya is sometimes used in early Dream Realm, but falls off in Endless. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, and guys, if there's anything to add to what I'm saying, feel free to chime in. Thank you, Jeff. And then Laika also has a niche use, because she applies also attack speed buffs to all allies, but they're not important to summon. I would say these three are very, very important, followed by it really depends. If you are a whale, you probably want... If you are a whale who summon for Dunleer and Dionel, which are two of the Celestials, then Laika and Parisa are going to be very good. Otherwise, for everyone else, it would probably be either Lenya or Parisa. Yeah, so if you're a whale, these two. If you're a free-to-play, these two next. Okay, so now for S ranks, Graveborns. I would say it is a 3-way tie. Actually, there's a number 1. That's Ludovic, because he is a damage-dealing, really bursty healer, and he's used in Dream Realm sometimes. Yeah, so for this reason, Ludovic is high priority, and then it would be a tie between Carolina and Thorin. Carolina, she's a crowd control mage who has been gradually falling off, especially with the release of Bonnie, who I'll talk about later. So actually, probably it would be these two, followed by Carolina, followed by... Oh, and by the way, Thorin, the reason why he's so good is because he is a tank that can one-shot your entire enemy team. Because he has an ultimate where when he's casting his ultimate, he's charging up, there's green flames under him, he takes damage from the enemies, right, because the enemies are constantly attacking you, and Thorin fires back cleave damage on any enemies within range, with an insane amount of damage output that scales off of how much damage the opponent has done to you. So there's something we call the Thorin cheese, where you think you're winning, you have 5 allies, you're facing a Thorin charges up, and Thorin one-shots your entire team. That can happen. So, and Thorin, on top of that, he at high enough ascension is able to share a pact with an ally behind him, where he takes half of the damage that the ally takes. So it's a way to protect your glass cannons and supports. Also, Thorin gets some heals that scales off of a percentage of the amount of damage that ally deals. So it's a way to improve survivability of both Thorin and the ally behind him that he has formed a pact with. Alright, and then for the rest of these heroes, I would say Hodgkin is a huge skip. He was released last season. He's a summoner, but he's not great. Nara, she has fallen off this season. She doesn't see any play this season besides PvP, but Nara, she's unique because she's able to drag an enemy towards your side of the field at the start of battle, and also over the course of battle when certain criteria is met. So Nara, she's unique in that sense. Cessia, she is a hero who you'll get 1 copy of at the start of the game. She's very good at the beginning of the game because she summons a hero called Mr. Carlisle, whose stats are a copy of Cessia's, and is able to crowd control and deal heavy damage. Yeah, Nara's good to have 1 copy of for AFK stage push, and you're right. Not necessary, but decent, yeah. And Cessia is also along the same lines. Like, she's not super important, but there's certain game modes that aren't that important that she is good at. Like the Graveborn tower, she's usually a hero you'll run. Igor is a hero who can cheat death multiple times depending on how much damage the opponent has taken. So he's a very good hero for stall comps. He doesn't do great damage though, so that kind of limits his viability. So in terms of priority for S ranks, I would say it's going to be Ludovic and Thorin first, followed by Carolina, followed by maybe 1 copy of Nara, maybe 1 copy Igor. I mean, the rest of these aren't that important. I'd probably build Nara and maybe Cessia, and then, you know, Igor if you are looking to build yet another person, and Hodgkin you can skip. By the way, Turtle, we are allowed to post a video about Cryonaya now. Oh, okay, thank you, Puzzle, appreciate you. Alright, so for A ranks we're almost done. So A ranks, without a shadow of a doubt, Bonnie is going to be a high priority, because Bonnie is viable in the beginning, maybe like the first month of a season for Dream Realm, but she is insane in PvP. She's like meta warping in PvP because, well, it's not because of her range, although she is the only hero who has a 7 range. I mean, that's a really long distance that she can fire from, but more importantly, she has the ability to apply aging magic to reduce the opponent's haste, and this aging magic spreads over time to other enemies, which, and she also hits very hard, and she stuns, to my knowledge, so pretty, and she's a magic damage dealer, so I mean, like, she has everything going for her, and she's very hot. So for all those reasons, she is definitely above the rest of these heroes by an ocean. And then for the second hero, it would probably, in my opinion, be Niru. Used to be Sylvina, because Sylvina is a unique hero that you can have her teleport at the start of battle to an enemy position of your choice, and then she'll hit very hard, and with high investment she can shield herself to improve her survivability, and she hits very hard and hits even harder if she gets KOs. But Niru, ever since Bonnie came out, Niru has become more important because Niru, he has an ability where at the start of battle you can choose who he buffs, and he applies a buff that allows the ally to cheat death once. And over the course of battle, if Niru survives long enough, Niru can apply this buff to yet another hero, then another hero. So it allows multiple of your allies to cheat death. And he also baits Lily May. Remember what I mentioned earlier, Lily May can cancel the first ultimate the opponent casts. And so Niru's passive to apply a blessing on an ally is considered an ultimate. And so Niru's revival buff can bait the Lily May's valuable one-time ultimate cancellation, so that another ally who has a more powerful ultimate can cast their ultimate freely. So Niru, very valuable. And then after that, Viperion is a decent DPS that is unfortunately not viable in any game mode that is important, and then Salazar is skippable. Now this is already a very long video, so I'm just going to wrap things up with the final, actually let me just fix my okay. Alright, so then going to Epic Wishlist. So Epic Wishlist, this is more like a low spender pay to win section, although if you complete events sometimes you'll get these epic letters as well, but these are a more premium currency. Epic Recruitment is great because it allows you to laser focus on any 5 heroes in the game. So, you know, for instance, if you are starting the game, and remember how I mentioned before that, you know, it's a 3-way tie between these 3 Wilder S ranks, or a 3-way tie between these 3 Graveborn S ranks, you can actually put the 3rd hero that you couldn't put on that wish list into this wish list, or you can hyper focus on a very high yield ally, get them as ascended as possible to swap into the 3rd best hero as soon as possible. So from an Ascension perspective and a Dream Realm perspective, I would say the most important heroes would be Mikola, Smokey, Sonya, and then the remaining 2 heroes can be heroes that will allow you to thrive in other PvP and PvE content. For instance, if you care about PvP, then, you know, Bonnie could be very helpful. Lily May could be very helpful. So actually I would probably do something like that. And then for the 5th slot, probably be like Aaron. Or if you want to hyper focus on Dream Realm, you can probably do like Ludovic for the beginning stages of Dream Realm. But I would say that from an overall value perspective, like if I was starting a new account, I'd probably start with this, and then maybe curate to your personal taste. This one is more debatable, but I would say most people would argue that Mikola, Sonya, and to some extent Smokey from a Dream Realm all-purpose perspective. Yeah, Ludovic only good with Mythic Charms. I think they are going to nerf this season. Once Volka's banner ends, she might be a good number 2 for A rank Graveborn. Oh, you're right, Jeff, you're right. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. And what Jeff is referring to, by the way, is this right here. So remember what I mentioned at the start of this video. There should be no FOMO for any rate up hero, because, for instance, in Volka's case, in 4 days, 22 hours, she will no longer be summonable in the rate of recruitment, but it will mean you can add her she'll be included here. It'll show up and it'll say new. So Volca will be added here, and then you just swap Niru for Volca. Volca could be number 2 actually, because Volca, even though she's not like shining in any game mode in particular, but she can be used in all game modes, including Dream Realm, because of her ability to do true damage and also be a really good frontline hero. Although I do think Niru it would probably be somewhat of a tie between Niru and Volca, but Volca probably is more valuable. Yeah, okay, so that wraps it up for this video. If you have any questions, you can leave a comment in the comment section below. I will try to continue this beginner series. I've been playing this game since the global launch, March 27th of last year. You know, if you have any questions that you need more immediate answers, you can contact me or my other friends on Discord, or you can, you know, join our Twitch live streams and I can answer you directly. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Alright, thank you so much guys for chiming in. And let me just check my mom's text real quick.